Welcome to Season 2 of Producer Points. My name is Justin Gamella, and I'll be your host. I'm a producer and songwriter who's had the honor of working with some of the best in the industry. This season, we're diving even deeper into one-on-one conversations with producers, mixers, songwriters, and artists, exploring their unique journeys, creative process, and insights that shape great music. Join me for real talks, straight from the studio, where music and life intersect. This is Producer Points. Today on Producer Points, we're diving into the world of a producer whose work seamlessly blends electronic textures with heartfelt songwriting. His ability to translate raw emotion into lush, cinematic soundscapes has helped define a new wave of indie pop, earning him gold certification and over 500 million streams. He's worked with incredible collaborators such as Jeremy Zucker, Chelsea Cutler, Quinn92, Yoke Lore, Suki Waterhouse, and so many more, shaping some of the most emotionally immersive records in recent years. From his classical roots to his evolution as a producer, his approach to crafting sound is all about enhancing storytelling, knowing when to add, when to strip back, and how to create space for an artist's voice to shine. Whether working with indie icons or crafting his own music, his sonic fingerprint is unmistakable. Join me in welcoming Hazey Eyes. Dude, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I really love that intro, man.
I've been such a fan of yours for years. We were talking about it before we started recording. My cousin, Gavin, he goes by Gavin Chops professionally. I was managing you in the early days, and that's how I kind of
I remember he brought you up to me. I mean, this was, but yeah,
years ago.
I think that's how I first heard of you as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, I was a fan of your artist project that you had for a little bit there, and I've just been watching from afar. And it's every time, I hear a record on, random Spotify playlist or whatever, and it's no surprise when I like a record and I find out that you produced it. You have you and I have very similar tastes, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And obviously the same thing with you, I think we work in a similar space.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I don't know, you always made such fucking cool records. So I was so pumped when we met for coffee a couple of weeks ago and that you said yes to doing the podcast, man. So thank you so much for being here. I always love getting on people who are I love all the guests I have on here, but I really am I'm a big fan of your work and some of the artists that you work with. I'm big fans of. So it's a real pleasure to have you on.
I'm so happy to be here, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, we always start the podcast with how our producers or guests got into songwriting and production. So, dude, where did it start for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it started from a few different ways because you alluded to it a little bit that I started technically as an artist. I mean, that's where the production started at. If you go before that, I kind of grew up playing a bunch of different instruments. Was playing in bands in high school. What
kind of bands? What kind of music?
Some of the heavier stuff, almost metal stuff. So very similar. Weird. I was listening to some of the other episodes, and it seems like there's a theme of the heavy music to producer pipeline.
I mean, my original band was pretty heavy. Kind of stuff. So I get it.
Yeah. So I think the first thing was oh, how do I record us for fun? In, my parents' basement was the first ever inception of getting a DAW. But I think when I got to college, it became a little more structured. And I just kind of liked making music in my free time. I wasn't doing any music as a major in college. I did electrical engineering. So I was just kind of messing around in my free time. And then I didn't really get the artist stuff kind of happened was the artist stuff was more me figuring out how to produce. And that's kind of I didn't really know you could be a producer. I didn't know that was a path. I just kind of was making beats in my dorm room and putting them on the internet, and it kind of scaled from there. And it was a lot of fun. I was able to tour a couple times. It was fun.
Yeah, dude, I saw you open for Shalou years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a lifetime ago, but
right. Yeah, it's crazy,
and it was a lot of fun. But by the end of my time at college, I was kind of it was a lot of fun. I just didn't really think it was. I don't know. I think I was just growing up. My tastes were changing. I was just not. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint exactly why, but I just really enjoyed making music. But there's even now today, there's a lot more to being an artist that's just making music. And I really making the music.
Could not imagine being an artist right now where it's and I don't know if you feel the same way. I wasn't a huge fan of touring.
I didn't really get much else from it. I liked making the music. I obviously you love talking to fans, who doesn't? But playing on stage, just I I don't know. I don't think I'm like awkward, but it just didn't really seem supernatural.
It's tough, especially like what you were doing, right? Because I remember it was like you were mostly like kind of playing a set, which is like
Yeah, it was like
was a
it was
thing
also
for a
like because it was
while.
like some weird hybrid in between like
Right.
live and electronic. So it was also that also puts a set of, restrictions that make it somewhat
I
natural
think
or unnatural depending on how you do it, you
Yeah,
know?
I think that works better as you like get more money. You can like put
Right.
money into like
Yeah.
having cool visuals and like lights. And it's like when you're
Yeah.
first starting out, you're like, it's me. And like, I'm definitely like, I mean, I thought your set was great because the music was so good. But like, I would be scared to do that. Like, I've never been on stage just by myself unless I'm playing like an acoustic set. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's a very vulnerable thing to do.
But yeah, so I did that in college and kind of like but I was learning to produce, and that would have been, I guess, some from like 2016 to 2019 technically was
Yeah.
when I was like doing artist stuff. But as an artist, I kind of like met other artists, became friends with them, including, some of the ones you mentioned in the intro, like Quinn 92, Chelsea Cutler, Jeremy Zucker. I kind of like met them just as friends through my time as being an artist. The the weird thing was that like with Quinn specifically, it was like my first production cut. He At the time I was like signed to this YouTube network that had a label, and they were doing, back at the time Millennium was signed there, and they were doing like a remix album for Millennium, and they asked me to do a remix of one of the songs on the album that Quinn was featured on.
Okay.
So yeah, I did that remix. I'm pretty sure Alex Aoki like heard the remix and sent it to Quinn. And then Quinn and I DM'd on Twitter about it. So I think I like posted on Twitter about it. And he was like, "Oh, we should work together sometime." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I would love to." And then like
Great.
randomly, that would have been like the craziest part is like that was like around the first 2 or 3 songs I ever released as an artist. So that was like right then that happened. We ended up connecting like a couple weeks later, and we like remotely made this song called Flare Guns, which ended
Yep.
up being one of their, beginning songs that kind of, it was, I think, one of Chelsea and Quinn's earlier collabs.
I mean, it's one of their
Um,
biggest songs to date still.
yeah, that was probably like the 4th song I ever made, just like in general. So like I was in college. I think I was like a sophomore when that came out. I still ended up doing the artist thing for like 3 more years, just being like, oh, I guess I kind of have like a song that does well, and I'm a producer. Like I don't really know what any of this means, so I just like kept doing the artist things. Again, I didn't know any better. I was in Philadelphia at the time in college too, so I wasn't necessarily in like New York or LA where like I would be just like, interacting with other
Right.
producers or like industry people. So I just like kind of did my thing as an artist and just became better friends with them in general. And then like by the end of college, I was like, all right, I don't really want to do this anymore. I had moved to New York in 2019, and like it kind of just happened that I would start hitting up people who I had kind of met as an artist and just kind of tried doing sessions in New York a little bit. And then
Right.
like during the pandemic, it kind of like opened up a lot because Quinn and Alex Aoki were in Rhode Island to get out of LA for a bit, and I was on the East Coast. So I went up and met them in Rhode Island where they just happened to be working for a little bit, and we ended up making a lot of Quinn's album
Yeah.
Change of Scenery 2, including that song Stay Next to Me,
Yep.
which was like, another one of his songs that ended up doing pretty well. And it's weird because like my first production cut was Flare Guns. My second was a song by Quinn called Coffee. Technically my third was a song by this artist Bank, Bayink. It was called
Dude,
Go
I know
With
Jack.
You.
He's a great friend.
Yeah, so like, and then
Yeah.
my fourth was Stay Next to Me. So it's weird, but like those 4 cuts were over a span of like 5 years. So
Yeah.
like I was doing artist stuff. The producer thing just kind of like happened naturally over like the first X years that I was just doing music in general. And then I kind of was able, so it was weird by the time I'd fully stopped being an artist, I was kind of just able to be like, oh, who wants to do sessions? And it just kind of like started there. I was never like grinding it out in the studio. I was never like an intern, which is interesting because like I kind of had to learn all that stuff after the fact.
Yeah.
But it was just mostly like me as a player and composer and arranger who just like played a lot of stuff and like, played instruments and arranged things as you do in Ableton. And now like
Yeah.
it's funny, I'm almost like going back around to like learning all the recording techniques and all the stuff that probably you would learn if you worked at a studio.
Yeah. But that's kind of like the new way to do it. Like when, younger producers reach out to me, they're always like, "Yeah, so should I like intern at a studio?" And I'm like, "No. Like you should absolutely not do that. Like you need to like do what you did and just like honestly make music and just put it out there."
Yeah, I mean,
And
specifically if you like want to produce for people, I think it just,
yeah.
I think even more than ever, especially with however things are going, producing, what does it even mean? It's hard to define what it means to begin with, because I feel like I struggle with that question when like people ask me like what I do, what I act, they're like, all right, you're a producer, like what does that mean? And I'm like,
Right.
well, it could mean a lot of things or nothing, but
Mhm.
sometimes I play all the instruments on a song, sometimes I play none of them. But I think it's now like for anyone who's trying to get into it, it's so much I feel like now entwined with taste and curation of like what it means to be a producer because
Yeah.
Splice exists. We all use it. Like we know how to use these tools that have, really upped efficiency, or you can record stuff yourself and everything. But like,
Right.
A lot of stuff is sample based, whether you like it or not. Like we're gonna be layering kicks, we're gonna be
Yeah.
doing stuff with samples. So like the choice and like how you want your music to sound and who you want to show the world you are, I feel like is what it means to be a producer almost.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, like, producer now to me, it's like I get that same question, especially from like friends back home or family. They're like, what's your job? And it's like producer has transformed into so many different jobs nowadays because technology has made it easier to do so many different
Mhm.
things. You're a lot of times you're songwriter, you're engineer, you're A&R, you're instrumentalist. You're like all like that's what I think the most successful producers are. They're all of the things in one. I think if you're just only one of those things, people like that tend to have shorter careers, I've been noticing.
Mhm.
But the people who really are able to like morph and do like all, really, like I keep saying, it really is all of the things. We're even mixers now too. Like we have to get our mixes so far,
Mhm.
so much further than they did even 10 years ago. It's kind of mind boggling, like how heavy of a job it's become, in my opinion. But yeah, so making all these songs, and were you in LA yet, or where were you? Where were you living?
I was still like in between New York and Philly because I moved to New York for probably almost six. Like I graduated in 2019 from. I went to Drexel. I completed my electrical engineering degree. It was a 5-year degree. I went to I went to New York for like 6 months, and then I went back to my parents' house for the pandemic. And like even as I was graduating college, moved to New York. I didn't really know what I was going to do at that point because I was in this in between of like the producing was not something I was doing to like make any sort of living. But I still knew that if I wanted to do anything in music, I probably had to be in New York or LA. So I moved to New York and got a job basically. I did that and then would do stuff in my free time. And that's where like even like when back with we were in Rhode Island, like I was taking time off to just like go do and hang
Right.
out with them and then go back to work. But yeah, so I was in New York for 6 months, went back to my parents' house for a bit during the pandemic, then went back to New York from 2021 to 2023. Then I've been out here in LA now since like the summer of 2023. So it's coming up on 2 years, which is crazy because I keep
Yeah.
saying a year and a half and suddenly it becomes 2 years. Then
Yep.
like,
It's nuts. Yeah, it's great. It's such like a funny thing too for like I think producers and songwriters to hear where it's like you were having songs that like, they weren't like huge radio hits, but they were doing really, really well, like objectively like big songs. And I think like understanding like just how this industry is set up where it's like, yeah, man, like you still like money's still hard to come by. And it takes a couple years for it to kind of like be like,
yeah,
okay, now I'm
I mean,
having
definitely
many
like the whole like world.
releases.
I mean, everything just
Yeah.
takes a year longer than you think it will to come in on
Mm-hmm.
the back end, and it's just
Yeah.
like even that like it's just weird because like I feel like you really like get to be in this like the circuit of like people who go to people for like sessions and stuff like that. I feel like it's like after like your third big song. It's not after your first. It's not really even
Yeah.
after your second. Really, like it's after your like third, fourth, fifth when you do it consistently for that amount of times. And they don't have to be huge songs, but once I feel like showing you do things consistently with like an efficiency rate where like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like, oh yeah, we get something good with them is more
Mm-hmm.
what leads to it than like even. I mean, a radio hit will do that for you probably in some
Yes.
capacity, but like
But those are
I haven't
so,
had
so,
some
so rare.
radio
Yeah.
hit yet, but like I work with artists who have real fan bases, and like a lot of people just resonate with their music, and that helps me. That even a lot of people back home know their music and like stuff like that, which is really cool for me. And like
Yeah. I mean,
you
dude, like
know,
you have a career that I know so many people want, like including myself. It's like I love like yes, we all want a radio hit because money's great. But it's also so incredible that it's like, yeah, like I get to do albums, I get to do whole projects. Like I don't know, it's like that type of production isn't for everyone, but the people that love to do that, that really want to do that, it's something that's I don't know, in my opinion is so special.
yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful that artists come back to want to do more with me. It's
Yeah,
kind of also hard to describe because I didn't really like. I'm really grateful that it happened, and it never
right.
was really anything that was like put together specifically or anything. It just like really naturally happened that I got along with these certain artists. We just
Right, right, yeah.
kept working, and then like suddenly we had all these songs, and they're like, all right,
Right.
let's just put them out. And,
Yeah, and then even from, a financial standpoint, it's like as a producer, it's so much more how do I say it, like comforting being like, "Oh, I'm doing this person's whole album."
yeah,
And like you get to, eat for a little while. I think
it's
those are
easy to plan things out.
yeah, yeah. It's like, okay, cool. I know I got like 10 releases coming out, as opposed to like you worked with, 30 artists the last 3 months and you're like, I have no idea what's coming out. So I think I always tell people like, if you're able to work with an artist and do as much as you can with them, like you should. It might seem like a risk where you're like, oh, I'm spending so much more time with this person and like I'm not doing other opportunities. But at the same time, it's like, right, you're spending so much more time with that person. Like you're building a relationship. You might get to do everything they do. And if that artist blows up and you're doing everything, that's going to be amazing for you, as opposed to like artist blows up and like you did one of the 12 songs on the album, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's
No, it's I it definitely, and you mentioned the word risk. It definitely is a risk. It's interesting because like, I had a job until 2024.
right.
So it was interesting. Like I've tried to like create this thing where, I have something that's like paying my rent outside of music kind
Right.
of until I was like, oh, now I mean, not really anymore, but like I was
Yeah.
like, now I'm here very busy. Also, I think it had to do with not being in LA because New York, amazing city, but it was nice to like have something to do that was not
Yeah.
music all the time because sessions are bountiful there, but like a lot
Yeah.
of the signed artists that are like making the records is kind of happening in LA. At least in
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that I work on
No,
now.
it is, and
You
for better
know,
or worse.
yeah, for better or worse, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and like that's the thing too. I think it's like, I mean, like, listen, I'm doing a separate thing. I'm doing a podcast. It's not making any money yet. I hope it will one day, but it's at the same time where it's like I think producers like and songwriters especially are learning that the music industry is changing, and with how honestly like disgusting Spotify is with just like being like, ah, fuck it, we're just not going to pay people. It's like you have to, especially early on, your first like 5, 6, 7 years, like understand that's like, okay, if I want to have other income sources, because with financial stability, in my opinion, and maybe you can relate to this, comes more creative freedom.
totally. I think that's like
Yeah.
kind of central to what I've at least wanted this to be because like I don't
Right.
really have to pick projects now based on
Right.
money, and it's just kind of really what I enjoy doing. And like,
Right.
yeah, but you also mentioned, if you were trying to get into it now, I would like tell anyone who was asking me, it's like a
Mhm.
10-year. You would assume it's a 10-year
Absolutely.
thing
Yep.
of like, I want to be a producer. Okay, come hit me in 10 years and let me
Yeah.
know like how you feel now because like I
Yeah.
feel like it's been almost 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. It's like people like don't realize it. We had season 1, like season 1's most listened to episode by far was Gabe Simon, who does all of Noah Khan stuff. He's had such an incredible 2 years, and in his episode, he talked about how he got a talk from his A&R that signed him, that she was like, "Yeah, your first couple of years are going to suck. You're going to be in rooms and like you might get cuts, you might get not, and by year 7 or 8, you're going to get a great cut, and then by year like 8, 9, and 10, like you're gonna be great." And
Mhm.
like that's exactly how it went for him. You know what I mean? He was like, I'm so thankful that like,
Yeah.
she kind of had that talk with me, as opposed to like, I think sometimes A&Rs and teams like pump people up like, yeah, we're gonna get you hits next year. And it's like, maybe, sure. Like, probably
Yeah,
not.
on that end too. It's interesting because I feel like I also try. I definitely, yeah. I don't. It's hard to like even. I guess I never even really reflected much on that. Like through the come up, it's always just been like, I make music for fun in my free time, and I've always tried to keep it as like music. Like I never like not to say pursued music. I
Right.
kind of just tried to live my life in a way of like a normal person. Like if music happened, it would happen.
Right.
Like knowing that like I would be fine if it didn't. And thankfully, I've ended up here because it kind of did happen in that way. But it's you know, takes a while and you got to be transparent with people about the ups and downs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and like I think too that one of the themes on the podcast that you hear from a lot of the guests is that like you it's not the people who are the most talented that make it. It's the people who are talented but also are the most like consistent, and they just keep doing the thing. And
Yeah.
that's where you're going to find success.
Yeah. As I mean, I think obviously also like I moved here. Everyone here is really talented. That's
Right.
like the baseline
Right.
to like get to LA. And then, yeah, it becomes the stuff that's harder to like describe, which is, perseverance, taste, goes back
Yep.
to taste again, I think. Like your ability to like see an artist really small and understand who has fans and see how they could grow over time and being able to pick the right ones that might have a better chance than someone else just because, I think there's so much music that's being put out now that there has to be some sort of, you got to, choosing stuff now is, I think, interesting for producers because there's however much, there's 100,000 songs that must come up
It's
or whatever the number is for that changes every couple of weeks of how much stuff is uploaded to Spotify every week. It's simply too much to do it. And even as producers, like you have to, it's much less than even labels because we can't like sign or, we're not
right.
doing 10 projects in the one quarter. It's kind of like, you really got to
Right.
choose
It's
the thing that makes you the happiest, and you really got to be intentional about that because I can't put out like 7 albums a year. It's not. It just
No,
takes time. This stuff takes time.
no, you don't. No one has the bandwidth to do that. And like you were saying with Spotify, it's gotten so competitive. I've
Mhm.
never seen Spotify's algorithm so saturated, and it's how much. I mean, I speak to artists all the time about how much harder it is to like cut through that algorithm than it was even like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get into the reasons why on this, at least on this episode, why I think that's happening, but it is happening. It's there's so much music being so much, and a lot of it is fucking really good. There's a lot of really great
Yeah.
music being released, and and I think too, like just talking about artists and projects that you love working on. I think I was talking about with a buddy who was a younger producer, and he was like asking me for some advice and almost about this topic, and he's like, how do I divide my time between doing like artists that I work with a lot, and there's this great website called Sound Better, that like you can like get
Mm.
work on. And he's like, I'm making like good money on Sound Better, but those are obviously not records that I'm like super passionate about, or I think will make me money outside of that initial production fee. And I basically told him, I was like, listen, man, like if there's artists or a record that you really love and you believe in, like do it. Don't worry about the money that you're gonna make from it up front, because one, it could blow up eventually, but also two, it's like I've gotten some of my best work, or like I've gotten opportunities from records that like, yeah, maybe they weren't the biggest record, but like for me, it's like a lot of the early stuff that I did with Ash, that like
Mhm.
all those like early Ash records were like, they weren't huge money makers, but she's like an artist that like artists love. And
Mhm.
so, like, I got a lot of work because everyone was like, "Oh, you did that the Ash stuff? Like, I love the Ash stuff. Like, I wanna do that." And, like, I think that we forget about that sometimes where it's like, yeah, making cool music sometimes lead to other opportunities that you don't realize directly or indirectly. And there's I don't know, I've always believed there's, like, so much value just in that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I feel like this is something I say to, like, my
yeah.
team sometimes too. It's like, everything I do at the end of the day is in pursuit of more work because, like, you know, that's the funny thing is,
Mm.
like, once the album that, you really spent a lot of time comes out, you gotta go back to work on Monday. So, like,
Exactly.
it never really ends.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Dude, I fucking love all that. I wanna kinda go on to some of the topics that I wanted to hit here. One thing I love about so many of your productions, man, is that you find a really great way to balance organic elements with, some of these more like electronic elements and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, what's kind of your, I'll kind of go like part by part here, but I think something that you do really well in your productions, especially the stuff you do with like Jeremy and Chelsea and stuff, are like your guitars. Like what's kind of your process with like I'll even start with acoustic guitars. Like, how do you like to go about recording those?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, process is just like, I think it always starts with the guitar.
Right.
Like, depending on what you want to do. I don't really have anything. I try to, like, I think a lot of my productions too is I try to mix it up every if I do something 3 times for like 3 of their songs, for the next three, I'd be like, well, we kind of did that.
Did
We
that.
kind of got to do something else now, unfortunately,
Yeah.
or fortunately. But I don't know, it was weird. I mean, specifically recording stuff from a lot of the stuff that would have existed. I never really had a fans. I don't really have a ton of fancy mics. I At the top of the year I did get some fancy mics, but for the past probably 4 years before like January, I was using this Vanguard tube mic that would have been. I think it's like whatever their like normal tube mic. It's like $1,000. It's not like
Okay.
I think it's one of the like cheaper tube mics you can get on the market, if not one of the cheapest.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure it's just like recorded like that normally. I mean, with the processing, I use Ableton. And to your point even earlier, I definitely try to like make things weird if I have the opportunity
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
If it's not, if it doesn't call for it, it doesn't call for it. That's fine. But I definitely go, I'm looking for the parts in the song that I can sprinkle some odd stuff in. And that, can be I use a lot. I mean, between Ableton, I like the hybrid reverb device. The presets on that are insane, and like
Yeah.
even stuff like built into Ableton, I will throw on stuff that you might at surface level say, "Why would you ever do this?" But gotta try it, And usually usually you end up somewhere interesting. I don't know. I just kind of just throw stuff on it. I know what it all does, but in terms of specific processes for acoustic guitars, it comes down to the guitar and the playing. I'm sure that like if you listen to the music that I've credited on like in a row, you'll start to pick out just like kind of how I play guitar. If I played guitar on the record, and that I think
Yeah.
does have a lot to do with it. And a lot of like, you know, we look at producer credits. It's just also hard because Spotify doesn't show the credited musician credits.
Right.
So
Right.
if you can dig in the deeper level of like who actually played on these records, you might find more patterns of things about the production you like because this person played on it, you know?
Right. Exactly. I that's what I use Genius for. It's really good
Yeah.
for that. They like list everything. And it's like
Yeah.
how I try and figure out who did what in a production. Yeah, man. Like I'm curious if you're kind of like me because whenever I want to make some interesting textures on guitars or whatever, I'm usually just like finding a plugin or whatever. I'm like throw it on there. Like, what does this do? And then kind of like trusting my taste. Is that kind of like what you're doing with things or?
Yeah, I mean, definitely like I definitely know a lot of everything. I know pretty deeply what everything I do is. I think it's more just pure experimentation. Like I have a modular skiff right here next to me. Like I have a Norns, which is a very
Oh, sick.
like I'm very into ambient music. Like
Yeah.
the ambient stuff I think influences the production a while because like if you're like on Instagram posting videos of modular synths, I'm probably following that. Like I like have a lot of those hashtags followed. Like I'm always into like
Yeah.
I'm on YouTube searching for drones and like how people are creating
I love that.
ambient
Yeah.
music. Like
Yeah.
I just think it's very interesting because doesn't really have much to do at all with like writing songs, and it's
Right.
fun I think to kind of okay, we have this song. What if we like took a bunch of these techniques that are in a totally different genre and applied them to this and see what happens?
Yeah.
A lot of it does come from hardware. I use a lot of pedals. Like I mean, there's another whole world of pedals that get you really interesting textures and
What you
stuff
say
like that.
just for the sake of making an Instagram clip here? Like, what's like your favorite like 3 pedals that you have that you're working with a lot?
Let's see. I'm staring at my pedal board. So
Yeah.
I use the Fairfield circuitry shallow water a ton. That's not necessarily drone, but it's a weird,
Yeah.
like cool random modulation thing.
Yeah.
I have this pedal called Hypersleep by Electronic Audio Experiments that is
Okay.
awesome. That's like a weird reverby type thing. And then I have some Chase Bliss stuff. The Chase Bliss pedals
Yeah. I
are
mean,
obviously a shortcut to kind of,
yeah.
all the ambient weird
Creating
stuff.
weird textures. Yeah. I've never heard of those first 2 pedals before. I gotta check them out and like see what they're
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
And like a lot of people are using this stuff by I think it's Hologram Electronics, like Microcosm, the Chroma
Yeah.
console.
I have my
Very,
Chroma
very
console
popular.
right here.
Yeah, they're great. But there is a whole world to pedal makers of like this guy's building a pedal handmade in whatever state, and he just
Right.
like sells 5 at a time. And I'm very into just like finding those people and like buying them because I also
Yeah.
like supporting small builders who make
Yeah.
pedals.
Dude, I had a buddy that made some pedals and he made like a couple fuzz pedals that I have here. It's like really cool. It's like kind of like too much at times. When it does the thing, you're like, ooh, it's doing the thing. And, it's super fun. Yeah, dude, I'm like, let's stick to this because I figured it was a lot of guitar pedal stuff. Do you have it only going through your guitars? Are you like running things back through to the pedal board?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a patch bay. So I actually am not. I like have the cables to hook up the
Yeah.
outputs of the UID rack to my patch bay, but I have not opened it yet. So I'm not doing as much reamping of things
Right.
as much as I mean, I have a lot of synths that go through pedals too. So everything's
Right.
connected to the patch board. I can patch in either a synth or a guitar to whatever. But it's mostly that. It's mostly just going in right now. So
Right.
I mean, I guess I could like on the plugin end. I do use a lot of plugins, and honestly, a lot of it is samples that
Right.
like you'd be like, oh, what's that? Did I make that word texture? Maybe not. Might have well
Might
have
have just
flipped a
found
sample.
it. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I do a lot of digging on that end. I mean, Splice is a huge. You can always look at the front page, but there's so many packs on there that like are on there that never really hit the front page.
I love using the random feature on there that not everyone uses. Where so I'll just like type in like something I'm looking for and always random because the second you start using popular, it's like you're getting everything that like everyone uses, which isn't a bad thing. But you're not gonna
not bad at all.
find like the true hidden gems.
Yeah, and then even back to what I was saying about the whole like Instagram thing. I've kind of like I've kind of trained all of my like automated ads across like Instagram or whatever. I only really interact with like pedals, either drummers or synth players or whatever. So I really, if I ever get fed like a sample pack ad, I click it and I actually dig into whatever the sample pack is.
Yeah.
So now I really just like if I'm scrolling, half the time it's just like samples and stuff like that. And I try to even outside of like I use Splice sometimes, but it's almost more stuff that I've just like found from an independent creator that
Dude,
I found
same.
on the internet somehow.
I've gotten a little bit bored with Splice, and my Instagram algorithm is the same thing, where it's like these random, producers or engineers just like making really cool samples, and I'm like, yeah, like I guess I'll buy that because like that's sick, and like same thing, supporting small businesses in a way, smaller creators.
Yeah.
Like I like I mean, I know everyone uses them, but like the circles drums and stuff are like incredible. There's this guy, this guy his company's name is Dane Zone.
Yes, I have his packs.
Yeah. He makes like really cool stuff and instruments that like, it's like It's my love-hate relationship with Instagram, right? Where it's like, it just
Yeah,
wants me to buy stuff. But it's like, you know what? I feel less bad when it's like small creators like that and like I'm helping to support them versus like Target.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's definitely how I think about it.
Yeah.
Whatever, it leads me to things I wouldn't have felt before or
Yeah.
wouldn't have seen before, and I think a net benefit to my production. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh no, dude. I love like to me it's like listen, I buy a lot of plugins just because I think it's fun and like I had this podcast, so it's kind of all in that world. But having sounds and instruments and stuff to me is so much better for my production than anything else because I just like I want new things to like get me inspired and be like, ooh, that's a sound I haven't heard before, and I can make this kind of a thing. And like all of my best productions have come from that, from like a weird sound that I found or an instrument on like Omnisphere that I just like stumbled upon and was like, oh, okay, I can make this little like riff now and like do that and have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's my
And
favorite
wait, do you
thing.
use Ableton or are you in Logic?
I'm in Ableton and Pro Tools.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and
Yeah.
what's interesting too is that I have like my hard drive. I definitely have I think at least 3 terabytes of like sample packs
Oh, I'm up there.
from. But I use Ableton's. You know those like colors you can put
Yep.
on the left thing.
Yeah.
I more use those as like a staging area of sounds I find that might work with an artist I'm working with soon.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
know how people use that, but like I really wish Ableton could expand that because like if I'm doing like whatever a couple days with Jeremy next week, like I'll go through samples for an hour on a Sunday and just like put like red on like a bunch of like clear it out and then put red on like 5 different potential starter ideas that like
Right.
starter. It could either be a drone, it could be a drum loop, it could be whatever, but like, oh, like this could be cool. So then I'm in a session like, if we're already working, like I'd obviously auto syncs to the time that we're in,
Right.
or
Right.
it's you start fully with that. But I found that is great way to use the Ableton's sidebar, like just kind of integrating the way that Ableton auto syncs your samples as you're kind
Right.
of already
Right.
working and stuff like that. And even
Yeah.
that similar sound feature, you know about that in the Ableton
Yeah.
12?
Yeah.
Like I use that a ton now. Like I kind of have, as I've learned what it can do, like it's so great when like it's so great of a system to just like, I download kind of full packs. So like I'll pick one drone and be like, this is kind of cool. And I'll go through similar sounds and it will put up like a list of sounds I've never found, never listened to on my own hard drive that
Yeah.
I'll just be playing for the first time in a session.
Dude, you know what plugin you should check out that I just recently got and I think it's fucking amazing? It's this plugin by I'm looking up at my screen here because I couldn't remember the company. It's Monkey C. This company is and this plugin called Rando. And it's fucking amazing. It's just like basically like it takes your entire sample thing and it just like it randomizes it. And you can like keep clicking random and it puts it all on a keyboard like ready to go. And I found it's like such like a fun way to like
Oh, sweet. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just really cool.
dude, it's so cool. I like saw again Instagram. I saw an Instagram ad and I was like, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
Like I'll try that out. And I got it and I was like, oh, this is so useful to just like try and start,
Yeah.
ideas
This looks awesome. I mean, I'll probably.
yeah, yeah. I know how you. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm like
And kind
I
of
know
along
how
with
you
this,
produce. Yeah,
I was gonna say along with this, I definitely try to tap in a lot to the Max for Live community as much as I can.
yeah,
Because even my senior design project at Drexel, I was in Max. I had to code it in Max. So I'm very heavy on Max for Live
yeah,
devices if I can find them. I use a ton of them, and like there's a lot of weirder ones that are weird in the greatest ways of what
yeah,
you can do with audio that are not necessarily built into Ableton, and they're a lot of fun too.
yeah. And I think those communities are so cool. I have a couple Max for Live things. I used to like be into it more, and then like I got out of it because Ableton was being a real bitch for like a minute with me because I was like trying. It was when I got like my M1 and like Ableton was just like not doing the thing for a little while. Now it's great. But I was
Mhm.
like one of the first people to get an M1 Mac because I was like ready. I was like, yep, I want that
Ah,
M1. I want to be on native and everything. It does make a huge difference though. I think running everything natively on the M1 is just like, I don't feel like like usually before I felt like I had to get a new laptop or computer like every 4 or 5 years. And I'm coming up on 4 years on this one. And I have no desire to get a new laptop yet because this one just like is dope.
yeah, I mean, up until I guess I'd probably the fall of 2023, like probably 5 months after I moved here, I was doing all my production on like a 2012 Mac. So like
Yeah.
all the Chelsea and Jeremy stuff was all that was on a really old Mac until I got this new whatever the like normal whatever number was at that
Yeah.
time, and I have not had any problems since. It's been really incredible.
Yeah, dude, amazing. One of the things I really love about a lot of your productions is the mixes always feel really open and like oddly wide, even though it's like it doesn't feel artificially wide. I feel like it's just where you're
Hmm.
panning stuff. But and the records just feel super warm. And are you getting a lot of that, I guess, glueness and everything from a mix bus perspective? Are you heavy on your mix bus or how do you like to kind of process all that?
Honestly, I mean, even going back to when I said like I never really learned the technical ways to produce from the beginning, a lot of my production just comes from how I process it going in. There's not a lot going on my mix bus. My master like on my main thing Ableton, there's probably like an ozone preset. That's really it. Like there's nothing else on there, and like a lot of the naturalness and warmness, I think, comes from me not doing a lot. Honestly,
Yeah.
like it's kind of hard to describe, but like I would definitely record 4 different guitar parts on top of each other in one guitar part and like processing it till an end until it like sounds different. So I think that that has something to do with it. It's kind of hard to quantify exactly, but
Right.
I'm definitely more of like a layerer than like a processor, if that makes sense
Okay.
to
No,
you.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Like I would rather fill in frequency spaces with like an extra part versus like bumping it with an EQ. And I think that leads to ways that I think just sound natural because there is not like whether we like it or not, like adding a bunch of plugins does like have some sort of feeling
Yeah,
of being processed to
it's
it.
digital at that point. Like you're doing different
Yeah.
things as opposed to just like, yeah, I love that
But
idea of layering
and
parts.
you need to do it. Like I obviously
Yeah.
like it's not that I don't process things, but like
Right.
I definitely would prefer I my mind I think goes first to being like, oh, I could play this. I could like put a baritone guitar if I'm trying to get something lower before like putting 5 plugins on a guitar, probably.
That makes sense. Do you have a baritone guitar?
I do, yes.
Yeah, I just got one a couple months ago. I really like
Yeah.
it. Do you have a baritone acoustic or just like a regular baritone electric?
No, I want to get one of those rubber. I don't have any like the rubber string ones, but it's a baritone electric.
Yeah, I converted my Telecaster thin line over here to a baritone rubber bridge.
Oh, nice.
It's like one of the best things I ever did. It's like honestly, it's my coolest guitar that I have. But I want to get one of those baritone acoustic rubber bridges. And
Yeah.
what's it called? Ruben from Old Style. He like, God, I'm like emailing that guy all the time. Be like, you got one? He's like, nope.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I live very, very close to them. And like I go in there just like randomly. They're kind of
Yeah.
they're usually there if you kind of just go in.
He's always there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, like the baritone rubber bridge?
Yeah. I think
see.
every time I've walked in, there's one there.
See, and I go there like not too often. I'm there like maybe every like 3-ish months to like bring in something to get set up or whatever.
Mhm.
He never has one. Like my goal now is like I try and search on like reverb for baritone guitars, like acoustics, and then just like have him
Mhm.
mod that. And I feel like that might be a little bit
Yeah.
better and probably a little bit of a cheaper way to do it because he doesn't
Totally.
charge like he charges around like I think it's like for our listeners if you're ever inspired to do it. I think he charges around like $200 to $400 depending on how fucked up your guitar is to like turn it into a
Mhm.
rubber bridge guitar.
Yeah.
But it is totally worth it. I have a couple of them and they're like the best.
I gotta get one.
Oh, so you have no rubber bridge guitars?
No, not currently.
Oh.
Jeremy has a bunch, so like
I was
there is a lot
I
of
was gonna
use of
say
them.
I was like it was
I
either you or
don't
Jeremy.
know one, but a lot of the artists I work with use them and have them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, dude, they're fucking incredible. Hey gang, I just wanted to pop in here to let you know that the best way you can help this podcast grow is to rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. It tells the algorithm to push our show to other listeners so we can grow, and it's one of, if not the best way to help support this podcast. So if you wouldn't mind, take a second to rate this podcast. Sharing it with your friends would be amazing too. All right, back to the pod. You know, speaking of Jeremy, I want to go on to our first song that we're going to talk about in the deep dives. Our first one being Terrible Things by Jeremy Zucker and Chelsea Cutler off of Brent 3. I picked this song because I personally really fucking love this song.
It's
like
actually funny you picked this one because I don't even like remember which ones were the singles because I like did a lot of the production across it, but like that one wasn't. So I'm glad, and like that was one that I thought specifically remember the production to be very cool, and so I'm glad you picked it.
Yeah, I just like, I mean, listen, like I love all the Jeremy and Chelsea collaborations are fucking amazing. I love a lot of the records, but this one to me, I don't know why I connected to it so much, and I, like I said, like I really genuinely love the production. So I was like really like being like, okay, I hope in the songs that I send over, you say yes to this one because I genuinely like really do love it.
Yeah.
Kudos to you guys. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say specifically with Brent as well. They kind of like made that they wrote it themselves, like kind of I guess like last spring-ish, and they had demos as well. So my role in that one was kind of like finishing more than a lot of like obviously facilitating the stuff, but a lot of it was finishing, and that's interesting too. That like I was never a finisher until like last year, and suddenly I became a finisher, which is weird. That's kind of so new for me, but like I do it, I feel like a lot now. So,
but if you think about it, even like you were saying, like your first cut with Quinn, it's like he wrote the top line and you made a beat around it. Like that's finishing in a way, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah. So what's the story behind that? You're saying that Jeremy and Chelsea wrote it themselves? When did they eventually bring it to you to
Yeah, this
finish
would
it
have
up?
been last probably July, I think. Yeah, they had wrote it like they wrote I think a lot of the songs like last spring. Then around last June, July, we had kind of like gone to the studio, and then we went to. Have you been to Infinite Family in Burbank
No, I've
before?
never been there. No, I haven't been there.
My favorite studio in LA now. It's like Gabe Wax's new spot they opened.
Uh,
Incredible room, incredible gear there. You don't have to do it's just everything.
Everything sounds good. Yeah.
Going into the production a little bit. I'm pretty sure I went through the session last night. That main guitar is I don't know exactly what model it is because it's a guitar that just is at Infinite Family.
Yeah.
I think it's some sort of Gibson ES, like semi-hollow
Yeah.
with flat wound strings
Oh,
specifically. That's what that main guitar is. And it's like that guitar doubled both a room mic and an amp mic on top of Jeremy's original acoustic. Or Jeremy, I don't know who played acoustic. It would have been Jeremy or Chelsea on top of
yeah.
their like demo recording acoustic guitar.
Right.
So I don't know how much it sounds like when you turn it on, but there's that track alone is like 8 or 10 tracks in Ableton of
Okay.
just like that main guitar part. So like when you go back to went back to go and asking me about like width and how that stuff happens, well, like
Right.
there's a bunch of mics around that guitar, and it's layered with another guitar, but probably very quietly, and that's
Yeah.
where like
Yeah.
you suddenly start to see like, oh, that's how some of that stuff sounds like very three-dimensional.
Yeah. So are you saying like go into a little bit more of that process with like, like the multiple mics on the guitar there? Like what like for our listeners, like what was kind of like the thought and how'd you and if there was an engineer go about doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what the thought was. I think it's just like every mic they have there sounds really good. We wanted the actual sound of like, I also think the difference was that there was a live room and a control room. Jeremy played that, and I'm pretty sure he was in the control room. So we wanted something going on in the control room and the live room.
Okay.
So, and the amp I think was honestly cranked up pretty loud. So I think there's just like probably if I know what we would have done then, there was probably like a small diaphragm condenser on the mic, sorry, on the amp,
Mhm.
and then something probably, I don't know, 6 inches to a foot from like him playing it. And I think specifically because it's a semi-hollow guitar that we would have done that,
Right.
because it projects a little bit of its own. And just like it's nice to get the picking sound on top of the amp,
Yeah, I
you
think
know?
so. A lot of people like forget about that it's like there's some records from, the 70s and 80s where they would do that on purpose, like kind of like mic up the electric guitar just to like
Mhm.
get some of that like I don't know percussiveness that you don't really get.
Dude, in my own studio now here, I think I'm very into room mics these days.
Yeah.
I just got a Newman SM2, and that's I think going to be my just kind of sits there, and I'm going to turn it on. Like even when I DI guitars now, I think I just turn on a room mic just to
Yeah.
have it. And I might not use it, but it's good to have. It's
It's
easier to
there.
like turn it off than create it from nothing.
Dude, I've been saying that for years. I like want to like get like because my studio isn't that big. I want to get like a ceiling mic that just
Yeah.
that's just like kind of always recording whatever I'm recording,
Yeah.
just in case, because you never know.
Yeah.
But I haven't figured out a good way to do it yet.
But back to
Unfortunately.
Terrible Things.
Yeah.
That's how it opens. I mean, a lot of that song again is from the musicians who played on it. Like
Yes.
the drums are from Ian, who plays with Jeremy on tour. Dylan Day plays guitar on it, and he's incredible. Whatever those like slidey things you hear throughout the record is definitely
Yeah.
him.
That was one of my questions. It sounds so
Yeah,
good.
that's
Yeah.
Dylan. He very good guitarist in LA.
Yeah.
He came and played on the record across a lot of the songs, which is very nice. Yeems played cello, so like we had the cello there, like that was
Yeah.
real cello that was tracked in the live room. She was incredible. I'm trying to think who, if anyone else, like, and this is also after the fact, after
Yeah,
their
right.
own demo. I don't know exactly,
Right.
like, I don't know exactly who played what on Jeremy and Chelsea's original demo,
Yeah.
but this is just after I got involved.
Right.
But yeah, I think it was like a lot of them. I think it was Dylan, Ian, and Yeems were the people who like we had brought in as instrumentalists.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the vocal stuff I do need to give, like Jeremy and Chelsea are very good at Jeremy, and like, a lot of the like vocal stuff that's going on at the end of like, I don't know, there's a lot going on. I didn't
Yeah.
like a lot of the vocal stuff is kind of them. I
They
definitely
did it
contributed a lot
already?
more, I think, to like the instrumental side of things.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's where that comes from. And, like,
What was
I like-
before we go too much deeper, what was the demo like? Was it just basically like their voices in that acoustic guitar?
Honestly, it may have been. There
Yeah.
may have been like a drum beat that would have been re-recorded, but yes,
Right.
probably like their vocals and that acoustic guitar, and like actually, the thing that opens at the da 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 da, like that
Right.
arpeggio was in there. So like there were production elements, but like not fleshed out as much as we did at the
Right.
end. There probably
Right.
was not much going on by the end of it, but like probably like 3 or 4 main pieces that probably stayed through it,
Yeah, of
and then
course.
everything else was kind of built around it.
I love it. I think one of my favorite parts about that production, funny enough, is the snare drum. and
Yes,
how perfect it is for that song. It like cuts through and it's not like in your face, but it's there. What is that, a real snare drum? Was that a
yeah,
sample?
that's a real drum. I went through. There's no layer. That's all live drums. That song.
Wow,
And it's
incredible.
just Ian's performance. I mean, I think that he played again. It goes back to that's the drum kit in Infinite Family.
Yeah.
The studio sounds really good, built very well. I do think though it must have been he's not using a stick. I think that a lot. As I've done more drums this year, there's like you can use a stick. You can use the full on jazz
Right, the
things. I'm
brushes.
not a drummer, so I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact terms. But there's like one of the sticks they have at Infinite Family is I don't know. It's in between like what do they call it? The jazz,
The
like
brush, the steel brushes or
the
whatever.
brushes. Sorry. Yes, it's in between a stick and a brush. It's like more of like the wand vibe of
Oh,
like
I know what
but
you're talking about. I don't know what they're called,
but
but
it's
I know what
not
you're
that
talking about. Yeah.
either. It's like
Okay.
something that I hadn't really seen before. I had to take a picture of it, but he's
Okay.
using something that like is somewhere in the wand realm, and that's
Okay.
like I think where a lot of the transients of specifically how that snare sounds and that stuff
Yeah.
comes in, and it's just tuned well. They have a nice drum kit, and kind of wherever I mean, maybe we did weird mics. I think we set up the mics, but we probably just threw them around the kit where you'd think they would be.
Yeah, nothing too crazy, but it's just like it's what it is when it's like a good sounding room and you got a great drummer. Like that's 95% of it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So once you got the drums recorded, was there any like do you like to do like drum bus processing, or you're hitting everything individually?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, Jeremy, I think like that's where like Jeremy was with me while we were doing this production too. He's great at like finding the sound. He's really good at, I mean, he did he, you know, engineered it in the fact that like he was putting through the preamps, found all the gains changing he liked, found like quick, even I think compression and stuff on the way in that he was really into. I think specifically on those drum buses though, I remember we had a fair amount of use of like the Fab Filter plugins on like the drum processing kind of stuff. I think I don't remember exactly, but probably some sort of saturation between Saturn or Decapitator or something like that. Something like that. Probably Pro MB, probably like for multiband processing from Fab Filter. But I think after, between saturation / distortion tastefully and like multiband compression, I don't think there's a ton else going on there. And like EQ, but I don't think we made any drastic changes to the sound in EQ. It was more to like, make sure nothing's overlapping in a way it shouldn't be.
Right. No, I love that. Seriously, like I think that's like the one thing about that song where I was just like, man, like everything in the song is so fucking well balanced.
And a lot of that, I have to give credit to John. John Caselli mixed that record too, and he
John's incredible. Like John is
a legend.
John is my. I've never had the opportunity for him to mix one of my records, but he's probably one of my favorite mixers out there. Like every time I hear something that he mixes, I'm just like, man, this fucking guy just like knows what he's doing, especially with vocals. How he makes vocals sit is just like kind of magical. Like, do you hear? And I'm assuming you're going to say yes because we all love John, but like, do you hear like that jump from like your mix to his mix? Like what do you feel like he's doing to like elevate your mixes?
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds better. It's kind of hard to say, like, because I don't like mix records at all outside of like, obviously some producers mix the stuff they work on. I've like never mixed anything I've produced ever. Not even like for like, there's always been someone else who touches it. My production, I kind of like operate in a way knowing that someone's going to be mixing this. Like, I don't really, like my mixes I think sound fine as my production. Like I know how to make a production reference mix and I'll do the things I do, but like I don't really dig into the mixing on my end if I don't have to, just because I know that like I like to work with people who do what they do. And like at this point, a lot of the production, every project I work on has a mixer of some capacity, and like that person is a professional and I like to trust the professionals I work with to do their job,
Right. Yeah. Who are some of the mixers you like to work with a lot? Just curious.
I mean, John was amazing. I love everything I do with him. I work with Yanni a lot.
We love Yanni.
I just worked with Philip Weinrobe on the Kevin Atwater album that came out last week, and Philip was amazing. He killed it. He does a lot of the Adrian Linker stuff, so that was great to work on a folk album with him. Those are probably the three that like I've done a bunch of stuff with. In a row.
And when you're sending, because like you're in Ableton, right? I'm in Pro Tools when I'm sending my rough mix rather, and I'm sending my Pro Tools session. When you're sending your stems to these mixers, are you like putting stuff through any like special bus processing, or you just like through your mix bus? I know you said it was pretty light, but like, or you're just like kind of giving them the raw stems.
It depends. I think with Brent specifically, I like to say like I don't do. I mean, it's weird. Like I do, but I don't. There definitely was bus processing in the Brent stuff, but Jeremy's also arguably as good of a mixer as he is a producer. So he was also handling a lot of like the processing side after I was kind of like doing my thing with it. But I'm pretty sure John was getting like bust stems, like or at least not every individual, but like I think we gave him both the drum group and the drums. I don't really know which one he ended up using, but like he may have just used the full drum group. I don't know. But I think we gave him the options to do whatever we wanted to do with it. But like the guitars, he may well have gotten the summed version of all of those guitars and the acoustic layer, which would, take it from probably 120 tracks to probably like 30.
Yeah.
Which would have, depends. It just depends. If I'm doing something in the bus that like I want creatively to stay in the song, I'm going to send the bus to the mixer. But if it's just like EQ and compression, I'll probably ungroup it in Ableton and just bounce them. Like I usually say, but when I'm bouncing stems, I'll save a separate Ableton thing and just like ungroup everything.
That's what I do. For our listeners, I think it's so smart. Like when you're about to send off a record to be mixed, I always do like a save as like mix ready version.
Yeah, I know. I also just like saving a lot of different versions in general because artists, it's not uncommon to need to go back to like last week's version of the
Every
song.
time I open the session, I'm doing a save as. It's like the smartest thing you can do because especially like you said, like you're working with artists, they're like, oh shit, I actually really loved this sound in like the one from like 2 versions ago. And then you're like, fuck, I don't know what that was. Like, so you look at my sessions, it's literally every day I open it, it's like the song and then like the date. And it's like such a better way to like keep organized because basically like the dates of the song line up with the dates of the bounce. Because that happens sometimes where an artist is like, oh, like actually, can we go back to like the version from December 2nd? Because like that one was so much better. And it's like I can just so much easier, like more easily find it. Yeah. Versus I know producers, they're like version 1, version 2, version 3. And I'm like, how do you know? Like,
yeah.
But that's me.
And what's crazy too, I think Jeremy and I, while doing Brent, we kind of realized that I run my computer through Dropbox to begin with, but like we like shared project files through Dropbox to work on all that stuff. And like as long as we were working on it at the exact moment, like we always had the same copy of the project and we're just like, so we'd go home to his studio and I would be in mine. And like it worked out very well.
It's funny. I was going to ask how you guys went about doing that, which is funny because I that's how I work the same exact way because I co-produce a lot and it's all on Dropbox. And I think Dropbox is like by far the best way to do it. And that's the one rule. You both can't be in at the same time. Because if you are, you can tell, just again, for our listeners, like you can tell if you like have the Dropbox like little app on like the top of your screen there, like you can see if someone's in it usually. Yeah. Like it'll be like, working on it. So that's in my opinion, like the best way to do that. And also, again, for listeners, for Ableton, file, collect all and save is your best friend when you're collaborating. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, things will get fucked up. There's no other way to do that. I want to move on to the next song. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear the song until like last week when I started like prepping for the episode. Obviously, Suki Waterhouse is like a huge, as the song says, like model, actress, whatever. She's very famous and so fucking talented and just like killing it. But what's the story behind that song? When did you get brought in and everything?
Yeah. So, I mean, that song actually started the day I met Suki in New York. It was just me and her. And we had made a demo of that song. That was pretty rough. We ended up doing like multiple, like probably 3 writing sessions for that song. But I think listening to like that first demo, the model, actress, whatever chorus did exist in the first demo. I don't remember exactly how we got to like the instrumental portion of it, but that guitar was from the first day. So like that main guitar that opens the song was there from that bounce. After that, Alexis Iderose, who's a great writer in New York, and they kind of came in and wrote some stuff with us on it. And then if that was like the writing stuff, and then Eli, the EP of the album, kind of got involved a little later as they were finishing everything. And that's when they did like live drums, they did strings and the kind of stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, she's just really talented. I don't remember exactly like what the tuning of that guitar, that main line is in some weird tuning. I think it's like an open B flat. Yeah. And it sounds like a harp almost, but it's me playing acoustic guitar. And I think I looked at it last night. There's a preset on the Ableton hybrid reverb. I use it a lot. Clearly. That makes it sound kind of like a harp that I went through. I was like, oh, wow. I like took it on and off last night and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
It's funny that you bring up a harp because the song does kind of sound like early Florence and the Machine in a way. Like just how like you went about everything. Yeah, and like almost like ethereal vibes were kind of like what I was going for, and like a lot of stuff does come from potentially reverb, shimmer reverb, stuff like that. Yeah. And then as I was going through, like there's a lot of I have a Korg Poly Ensemble P. That's a synth that is like a little maybe more unknown. It was technically Korg's first polyphonic synth, but that's doing a lot of like the high brass patches in the song and the choruses.
I'm trying to think of what else was going on there, but like a lot of it is just like, acoustic guitar, live drums, bass. There is like an actual Prophet bass line layering the bass, which I like picked out again last night, listening to it again, which was fun. From
Yeah.
World Sir, I do remember like I got it, like I kind of like went through my version of the song, and then it kind of like went to like the finishing process
Right.
after. But my version did not have the live drums, there was actually like a pretty big tonal shift in it, which is cool. Like listening
Right.
back, mine was a lot like lighter. It didn't have like I just remember like the snare on it's very low tuned,
Right.
which looking back is like very cool. Eli did the live drums. I came out the day and just was kind of there while they were doing it and like
Right.
hung out, and like that's where I ended up thinking there's also like like the live drums and the baritone guitar didn't exist until like the finishing
Right.
process, which is cool because it sounded like it's a little darker, which is very cool. I'm pretty sure I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm pretty sure Kane Riquette is the one who played drums. Yes. Great
I mean,
drummer.
incredible that you
Um,
remembered that. Good for you.
yeah, I mean, I tried to, you
Give
gotta
credit
you
where
gotta
credit's
give
due.
people who you work with
Yeah,
their good
exactly.
credit. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what else was going on specifically in
I
that
mean,
record.
I think one of the most identifying things about the record, and it's one of the hardest things to do, is just there's like a lot of reverb in there, and I mean that in a good way. Like you guys,
Yeah.
how'd you guys kind of find that balance between like too much and like the kind of the perfect amount of reverb?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It's like I think I still like not to say question myself as I'm
Yeah,
producing records, like still today it's like what is like the right amount of reverb?
yeah,
I just think that like listening before I'd met her in her other songs, like I knew there was a lot of reverb and it sounds so cool. And like it's probably like I think we just like I think it's just like go up a lot. And when it gets to be too much, and
yeah,
it's like, all right, dial it back a bit. I think is
yeah.
like that balance. Also, you can do a lot of tricks of like side chain, like putting on a bus and side chaining the vocals to like the
That's
reverb.
kind of what
That's
I was
some
gonna ask. Is like, what were there any like tips and tricks to like keep it kind of balanced
Yeah,
like that?
definitely. I
Yeah,
mean, that may have gone on in the mixing process. I don't exactly know, but I
yeah,
definitely will do that. If I just want a tail, I'll, put it on Ableton return track and just put like an Ableton stock compressor with the sidechain thing on with the input as the vocal. And so it only, comes in just as
right,
tails and, when the vocals aren't happening. That's definitely a big use. And then I also stack them a lot. Like there will be a room reverb, there will be a long one, and it'll kind of be like the sum of like four reverbs that will make a reverb sound you might hear in a
right,
record,
right, right.
just because I don't know. I'll be like, I'll put one on and be like, oh, this is kind of cool, but like, I wish there was this still existed
This
too. I
thing.
mean, it still kind of goes back. Maybe I layer stuff in processing like I layer stuff in the instruments. I don't
I mean,
know.
clearly, yeah. I like that. I'm the same way. I like to have like a lot of different reverbs going on for that same exact like reason where it's like, okay, I want this big thing, but I kind of also want it to like feel like there's like still like a short room
Yeah,
happening, like things like that. And just kind of like throughout the song, like automate like what comes in, what comes out, making the record feel kind of like it's moving. I have like philosophy, especially for like pop stuff, where it's like I want the record to stand on its own and feel like it's growing and shrinking with just the vocal production kind of a thing.
yeah,
Because that's what we're listening to. Like that's what, in my opinion, like 90% of music listeners are listening to. They only that
totally.
vocal, especially artists too. It's like I can't tell you how often I work with artists where they're like listening to like instrumental sounds great, sure, but my vocal, there's just one little section, right?
Yeah,
Which makes sense. That's their part.
yeah.
What would you say are some of your go-to like, large vocal reverbs?
We use Jeremy and I started using Altiverb from Brent. So now that I have Altiverb, I kind of
Yeah.
use that a lot. But like honestly, my go-to reverbs are Ableton. I use Ableton a lot. Layer by Aberrant DSP,
Okay.
incredible. I don't know if you've used that. They make sketch
I
cassette.
know I love everything that company
Everything
makes.
they do, like
Yeah.
Tectonic, Layer, Shapeshifter, and
Yep.
Sketch cassette I use them all the time.
Layer
Everything that
Layer
company
is by
does.
far the weirdest one they've
Yes.
made.
And that's why I
Yeah.
put Layer on a lot. So
Yeah.
like that's where like also if you like start to go back to like where do I get these weird drums from? Stuff like
Yeah.
Layer is probably a good starting place if you're trying to get into that kind of stuff.
Right, right, right.
But definitely between Altiverb Layer and Ableton built-in stuff, it's probably I might use ROM by Native Instruments. Sounds
Yeah,
great too.
Rama's good. I always forget I
It's a little
have it.
older.
Yeah.
It's like
It's like I always forget it's there. Then I'm like, all right, like this guy's like kind
yeah.
of cool. It
It
like
sounds
has that.
great.
Yeah, it has that like freeze function that you can like
Yeah.
kind of mess with every once in a while.
That's like a
Uh,
really ambient one. So if you're like
yeah,
looking for ambient stuff.
yeah. And once you're like doing ambient reverbs and stuff, do you like to do like post processing like EQ on it at all to kind of like make it fit? Or you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get
totally. I mean, yeah, I'll definitely be like freezing and flattening stuff a lot, like processing, freeze and flatten it, pitch it up, pitch it up, freeze it, pitch it down, freeze it, like,
oh sick.
anything you can do in Ableton pretty quickly. It's more just to like explore it more in like no set process, just in the pursuit of exploration, you know?
Right. Right. We're like, oh, we're just seeing what this is gonna do,
Yeah.
kind of a thing. Yeah, I should do that more often. I never commit any like my bus reverbs or whatever because I'm like constantly like changing things. And so
Yeah.
like the very end, I should at least like because in Pro Tools it's easy. I can commit it and like just like still have the other one there, like not touched. Basically, I never do it. I should though. I know it's fun because like I love personally. It's why I love Ableton, but it's like I love working with audio so much more than I love working with like I don't know like plugins and stuff. Like I like seeing the audio and being able to like do
Yeah.
weird things
Yeah,
to
even
it.
with drums, when I'm programming drums, like I'm
Yeah.
not usually using MIDI. It's usually I'm dragging samples into like Ableton tracks just 'cause it's
Yeah.
easier for me to see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. It's funny because I like well, no, I like to play things in because it's like
Yeah.
it gets me out of like my head a little bit, but
Yeah.
almost immediately I'm printing it because I want to see what it's doing, and if I do
Yeah.
want to move one, I want to be able to just like be like no, just that right there.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
find it annoying to move MIDI sometimes than it is to like move what's it called like audio,
Yeah.
you know. And then also like once especially with Ableton, it's like you have the fun little like you could pitch shift it like every once in a while. It's just easier.
Yeah,
To
I mean,
do.
just a little more control.
Yeah, it's sick. One of the questions I also had with model actress, whatever, I don't know if you were there for like the final vocal recording, but how many layers, like not counting harmonies and stuff, but just for like the main vocal and the doubles, like how many layers are going on there? Seems like a lot.
Yeah, that's a good question because I don't. They may have put more vocals on after mine, but
I'm
I
sure.
think the main vocals that I've recorded still were the ones that were used. But
Yeah.
if it was just the ones that I recorded, it would have been like center, left, right, and then probably like another left, right. There probably would have been like 5, like
Right.
one down the center, 2 left and right, and then potentially 2 left and right behind that. Potentially with her, I think that one was like there's like a lead, and then she's like doing doubles of the lead exactly how she's saying it, and like a soft lead and stuff
Right.
like that of like singing it differently. Because then a lot of that with what Suki's sound is like doubled vocals and like
Right.
a
Right.
ton of vocals kind of layered on top of each other, which is just like that's that sound.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna ask too, like when you either for her or just in general, when you're doing doubles like that are so layered, are you just like just like stay in the same place, or do you like to experiment, like back off the mic or like get a different mic?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even like with my doubles in general, like I always am like, do I do one down the center and then 2 on the sides, or is it like two main ones, like 10 and 10?
Right,
It's like
right.
still a question I change up every once in a while because like
Yeah.
that Kevin Atwater that I did, a lot of his doubles are kind of just like, one here and one there, not like one down the center. And so it's just I think it's just like the time. There's definitely just like a different sound to doing them. And I think it's whatever sound. The not having one in the center sounds a little more not like lo-fi. That's not the right
Right.
word, but like not having something down the middle center leads to like a little more lo-fi / indie sound.
No,
So
it
if it's
makes
just
an
I'm
indie
trying to
sound.
get
If I love that kind of record, but like I don't know if that's ever gonna be like a top 10 pop record, like having like
right. I
vocals
mean,
like
yeah, it's the
that.
pop thing to do
It's a
is down the
choice.
center and a
Yeah,
bunch of stuff. But yeah, so I think it just depends on the song,
yeah.
and the artist and like what they like. Also, like, what genre the artist exists in, what they
Right.
like, who they also like if they have references of artists they like, I'll listen to the songs, get a quick gauge of like how the vocals roughly
Right.
are done and kind of try to do that.
Yeah. When you're recording vocals, like what's your I don't know if you have a lot of outboard gear there, but like what's like your normal chain going into your interface there?
Yeah, I mean, actually I don't have any outboard gear.
Whoa, that's crazy. Wow.
The first outboard gear I've ever gotten, I got an H3000 like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, dude, those are
So
fun. Yeah.
so I've been using that. But yeah, everything just goes straight into a UAD pre.
Wow.
And like probably Ableton stock compressor
Yeah.
and like Ableton stock EQ. And like
Yeah.
that's kind of it. Not kind of it. There's probably more that goes on, but yeah, I guess I was always using that Vanguard, but now I'm using a vintage UM57, which is nice. That just sounds kind of good. I need a preamp. I should buy one, but I just haven't gotten there.
It's like preamp, I think is like, it's one of those things where it's like you have your microphone and you won't use it with a preamp, and then you use it with your preamp and you're like, oh, like that's what but also, dude, everything you do sounds great. So like, fuck me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's tough. Like it's just like I'm always like, yeah, I'll buy one next week, and then like I do sessions, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy one next week, and I'll buy one.
Well, I mean,
next
like
week.
once you're
Just
good,
keep coming out, so I haven't bought one yet.
I know. And like once you're like, I mean, this is good for our listeners, right? Because like young listeners, they don't have preamps as well because they just like can't afford it. Like, what are you kind of doing? Because like I feel like all your vocals really sound like nice and saturated and stuff. What do you like to do in the box to like get it there?
I mean, I will say this plugin, a lot of the Goodhertz stuff. I'm a huge Goodhertz user, and between tone control and I guess it's pronounced tube, you can tone control that, and one compression plugin is all I would probably need. But like they do a lot in those processing of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, tube is like, God, I can't use it on vocals too much because like I am doing a decent amount of like saturating just like going
Yeah.
into there. But like, man, I love tube so much. Like it's crazy how like many people like don't know about Goodhertz as a plugin company.
It's crazy that it's just like it's full saturation, but also the EQ, and it makes it fully the tone shaping thing too. So like I'll
Right.
definitely have that on vocals a ton, and it probably won't be more than 20 or 30%.
Yeah.
I definitely dial back, but like a lot of, and also like I feel like when it's processing, I'll put like 3 at 20% versus like 1 at 60%. Just
Right.
maybe it makes no difference, but you know, my
No,
ears tell me
I
to do
think it
that.
does. I always get nervous. I don't know. I maybe I'm just hearing it in my head. With tube specifically, I feel like if it's like not 100%, sometimes it can get phasey. And I just kind of like
Maybe, yeah.
I just like do like less driving. But with almost every other plugin, like Decapitator, it's like I push the fuck out of it and then keep like the mix at like, you know, as low as 4% or something like that.
Hmm.
Maybe I should. I'm just like I think like I noticed like phase in the plugin once like years ago and I'm like nervous about it and I just like haven't done it again, but I should. 'Cause I do love tube so much.
Yeah, it's like just a lot of their stuff. I mean, between Tube, Fab Filter stuff, like, you know, Saturn and stuff like that, you know,
Yeah.
use a lot of their stuff on processing vocals now. Sounds great.
Yeah. What kind of you know, compression do you like? Are you using just like Ableton stock compressor or are there any like models
Probably
that
like
you
Pro
like?
C, like that. Between Pro C, a Baron's shapeshifter, I use a lot, but very, very sparingly because it
Okay.
can blow stuff out. Pretty
Yes.
great as a creative tool, but like if I put it on like things that just I want compression, I'll probably use it for parallel compression.
Yes.
But Ableton stock one works great. You know, if I just need simple compression.
And how hard are you like, you know, to like kind of pick your brain here? I know like obviously every song and every vocal is different, but
Mhm.
like on the average, like how hard are you liking to hit your compressors? Like what kind of ratio do you usually like to go by?
Not that hard. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the stuff sounds kind of natural, and that comes from there being peaks and not
Right.
peaks. So I'm more just like to get it to nothing's going. There's no crazy volume imbalances is my goal usually with compression, not to
Right.
like slam it unless I'm doing like a full indie rock song and I'm supposed to be doing that.
Right.
But
Right. Exactly.
yeah, you know, it's more to just like tame when they sing louder
Right.
and
Just
make it
like,
not as annoying in the demo bounce.
do you do any like clip gaining in Ableton with the vocal?
So, yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that it's kind of in tandem because like, you know, I will go through and just the clip gain is like half of my compression stuff too, you know. But
Very,
I didn't do that at first, but as I've been doing that like in the past like 2 years probably,
yeah.
I've been like, oh wow, like this is actually what I'm supposed to do.
It's the way. It's like
It takes longer, but like, you
it takes
know,
a long time, but I think it's like those are the things where everyone's like, "How'd you get such a present vocal?" And you talk to the mixer or the producer, it's like, "Oh, like I went in there and I like
yeah, you
did the
spent
thing."
15,
Right.
20 minutes like gaining everything correctly and like
Right. I've learned it's funny enough, I actually do it now while I comp.
yeah,
And I,
I'm getting started. I'm starting to get quicker at it, like during sessions of just like
yeah,
quickly, you know, once you get your cue commands there, you just kind of flip it up when you see that it's lower than everything else. And
that's
it's mostly just a visual thing. Like,
yeah,
you
it
know, it
is.
looks
It really
smaller on the
is.
wave, so you make it look like the rest of the waveform.
And
Like,
it's funny, it's like you do it as a visual thing, and then you'll hear if you brought it too loud. Like when you're listening to it,
yeah,
you're like, oh, okay, I gotta like bring that back a little bit. And then sometimes, again, for our listeners too, it's like when I bring up a quiet part, sometimes it's like those quiet parts get a little bit too like boomy and bassy, and it's like, okay, just like bring up the volume and like EQ that part just a little bit. I guess how would you do it in Ableton? I guess you can like automate it. In Pro Tools, I can like audio suite. They call like I can
Hmm.
only EQ that clip, which is like kind of nice, but I don't know how you do it in Ableton. But it is a little trick. So I'm like thinking out loud
Yeah.
here. I'm like, what can I tell someone who's starting out? Like, what's the easiest way to do that? Dude, I love that. I want to go on to our next segment here. Talk a little bit about gear. We've been talking about gear a ton here, even though you like don't have any outboard gear, but you have a lot of toys. But even plugins or something. What's a piece of gear, plugin, guitar pedal? What's something that you keep going back to these last like couple weeks? Could be something new, could be something you've had for a while. What's like something you're like, fuck, I'm really glad I have this.
I mean, it's just tough. I mean, I feel like I like have a lot of toys, and I don't necessarily use like one all the time. It's just like, yeah, I feel like I have so many. I like try to buy a lot of toys that like I usually like will use them sparingly. So I'm not like using the same thing over and over, but
Yeah,
like
of
I
course.
always go back to like, I mean, my Wurlitzer I use all the time. I use like, you know, Shallow Water by Barefoot Circuitry. I use all the time.
So you wait,
Honestly,
say it again. That's shallow water.
yes, it's like a
Okay, I
random
got it.
modulation pedal.
I gotta check that out. I'm very curious
On the
about it.
plugin end, dude, I will say one thing I do always go back to for like that kind of stuff. I use Contact all the time. Big Contact library guy. I use a lot of film scoring libraries
Yeah.
for like pop production because I don't know. There's this company called Slate Nash.
Okay.
I don't know if you know them.
No, I don't know though. I gotta check it out.
Dude, If I'm using a synth plugin, I'm using the Slate Nash Choreographs synth library. Like any synth I'm using now.
All right, I
It's
gotta check that out.
huge.
Yeah.
But like a lot of my like weird drone stuff comes from random contact libraries I
Oh,
found
dude, I
online.
saw an Instagram ad for the Slate Nash stuff the
Yes.
other day, and I was like, that
Yeah.
looks really interesting.
It's a little expensive, but like I
Yeah.
use it all the time for stuff.
Okay, that
It's
makes
like
sense.
a lot of
No,
the random stuff that I make it kind of will come like it could be something from that. And there's also this company, what is it? Is it like it's like Freak Show Audio, you know them? They make that one drone plugin. They have like the crazy GUIs.
okay, yeah, I gotta check it out. Freak Show, no, yeah, I'll check it. I'll look at it.
I'm like opening
This
Ableton
is
right
this
now
is
to
the
show you.
stuff that like I'm always looking for because like it's so funny. Like you
Yeah.
brought up the Slate Nash company because I was like I saw that I was like, ooh, that has my name written all over it.
Yeah. Freak Show Industries. Look up that plugin
Okay.
company if you don't know that one.
Okay, yeah, I'll check
That's
them
where a
out.
lot of my drones come from. There's some of their
Okay.
plugins. Craziest GUIs I've ever seen on plugins.
Okay.
Like, their design team is
I know.
insane.
I'm looking at it right now. It like looks like a horror movie. This is amazing.
Like a lot of like honestly, a lot of
There's
like
one.
output.
Wait, hold on. They have a plugin called Dick Smasher. Come on,
Dude, and the craziest part is that like if you go to one of the plugin things, it's just like there's
Yeah.
a buy option or a steal option, and like they let you download it.
What?
It's
amazing.
a very interesting company.
Oh my god! All right, I gotta check this out. I'm gonna leave this tab open. Oh my god!
I mean,
that's
like
amazing.
output, whatever that plugin by output that does like the weird reverby and stuff.
Portal?
What's it called?
Portal or
Yeah, Portal.
Yeah,
So like I
yeah,
use
I like
Portal and
Portal.
stuff. I'll use Arturia has a granular synth, like granular effects plugin called Fragments that I love. That I don't know if a lot of people talk about. I use
okay.
it all the time on stuff.
Yeah, dude. These are all gems because I feel like these are a lot of plugins that like not. It's very rare that I don't know about a plugin. So I think this is something our listeners are
Yeah,
really
and like
gonna
on the modular side, like I use a lot of Morphogene, like a lot of just like weird sample mangling stuff.
Yeah.
I do use the microcosm a lot. Like that,
Yeah.
if you like have a microcosm and use it, you'll be able to pick out microcosm on stuff that I produce.
Yeah,
Probably.
it has the sound, but it's like it's a great sound. So nothing wrong with that, dude. I fucking love all of that. It's so cool. I love finding out about new plugins. It's like my favorite thing, especially things like this where it's like, yeah, it's just weird shit that like you can make weird sounds with. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever need another compressor, but
Yeah.
but like stuff like this, it's like, yeah, no, that sounds pretty good. I would like that very much. Dude, speaking of plugins, and it's funny, I'm looking at my list here. We actually spoke about a couple of them, so I might switch it out in my head and pick something else, or I might just ask you about it again. But this next segment is Plug or Unplug. For new listeners, this is where I'm going to ask you about a piece of gear or a plugin, pedal, guitar, anything, and you give me plug if it's something you like, unplug if it's something you're not really into, or bypass, make inactive if you haven't used it yet. So first one, I originally had Output Portal, but we just spoke about it a little bit. Let's speak about it. Why not?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the thing about Output, people sell. Output. There's the preset. There's like a preset community of them. Like I will like use custom preset banks. That's the one thing that like how I use Output a little differently than other people.
Okay.
Maybe or not. I don't know. But like,
where are you getting these custom presets?
What?
Where do you go to find them?
Instagram ads.
I love it.
I'm like not joking about it. Like I find like people will put presets like, or it's just like I'll find a company that makes presets for random stuff and there'll be an output bank. So I'll buy the output bank. Like there's a ton of random banks I have there. So that one I think comes down to the presets a lot. I'm not like building stuff from scratch there.
Yeah. Oh, it's too much work.
There's a lot. It's very, very capable plugin that I don't really have
but that's like a plugin where it's like I just want to move the thing and like see what it does.
Yeah, just see what happens.
Because like otherwise it's like that's like too deep of a thing to go into. I love that. Next plugin, man, we really did talk a lot about things here. It's so funny. Here we go. I'm curious if you use this plugin a lot. Big utility plugin, Sound Theory's Gullfoss.
No, I don't have that, but it's kind of like in the area of Soothe, right? That kind of like come up in a similar conversation.
Yes.
I have Soothe, although I don't really use that type of stuff that super often, honestly. Mostly because like I know what they do, I know how to hear it, but like if I think somebody needs that, I'll just tell the mixer to do it. I don't know,
I'm finding more and more that I'm finding Soothe and like plugins like Gullfoss and whatever to be problems. I think they're like
I don't
really,
know if they're not problems. It's just they're very application specific.
And that's what I was gonna say. I only end up using them when it's like I didn't record someone's vocal and they recorded it not great. And like
I was just about to say, like I would, if there was a guitar part that someone wants to keep, like that I did not record, I will then go into my mind. We'll say, all right, what can I do in this realm of things to like get it to a place that I would like it, that I couldn't just re-record it.
Right, right. It's like I think there's like too many like producers out there that just they're like, well, everyone puts soothe on their vocals, so that means I have to put soothe on my vocal, and it's like, well, like sure, but
Yeah, and
like
it
or
helps.
you
Like we definitely during Brent, like Soothe is on stuff. I'm trying to
right,
remember if there's specific reasons we used it for things, but like it's on, it's in there. It's just
right,
not. Jeremy also knows how to use it very well, and like I was not the
yes.
person dialing in the settings, and he probably was because he like knows very much about how it works and how to use it
Yeah.
correctly.
It's so funny. I feel like I like listened to something. Maybe it was John who was like talking
Yeah,
about
John
like
John uses it too, and he's a big guy on like you got to use it correctly. If I remember, I
right.
feel like we had that conversation with him.
Yeah, and like John is also like I feel like he said somewhere he was like, yeah, I did a mix and like, like sometimes like me mixing is just like turning off all the soothes.
And like that would sounds like something he might have said.
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like it was him. I could be wrong. But like, yeah, because like it does eat up a lot of like the imperfections, which is sometimes what's cool about music. Is like it's like, yeah, there's like a weird little fucking thing there. Like, who cares? Like leave it in. Like it sounds cool. And like all you're doing if you use too many soothes is like you're thinning out your sounds.
Yeah,
And
you just
like you're
got to
taking
as
yeah.
everything, got to be cautious of how much you use something.
Yeah, exactly. This is a plugin I was curious if you use or not because it is like a very, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Cinematic-y, textural kind of plugin. Baby Audio's Crystalline.
I know of it. I don't have
Yeah.
it just because I think I have so many other
Like
if I
things
were
that do
whatever
that.
that does, I would probably use with the between output and the Arturia one. And like
Right.
honestly, Ableton, like Pitch Loop 89 and stuff like that in Ableton is what I would probably be using instead. Of like
Okay.
Ableton has so many built-in stuff to like get shimmer stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know the plugin is just I
Shimmer,
have
that's the
like
word I was looking for.
I don't need the
Jesus.
sixth one,
It's like I don't need to know one of these. Yeah,
Or
no,
maybe I do, but yeah, I don't
nah,
have that one. I have
I
other
mean
baby audio stuff.
yeah.
They have like that free chorus plugin that you just turn on and it makes things really wide.
Yeah,
I use
was it
that
like Magic
sometimes.
Tape or whatever? Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't remember the
I
name.
love I mean, full disclosure, like I'm like one of their artists. It's not why I brought up the plugin, but I do like a lot of their stuff. Crystalline is a fun one. It's like one I don't always reach for, but it does that like for listeners, it does that shimmery thing that like
And for the also like I just already have the Soundtooth suite, so I'd probably
right.
use Primal Tap for or whatever whichever
Primal
one does
Tap, and they
that.
also have their like crystallizer
Or
plugin too.
that one, yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
meant. Like it's
yeah.
kind of have a few options for that.
That like already does that thing, the hollow shimmer. If
Yeah.
says it in the name.
Yeah, I actually don't have that one, but I know that one's that one I know is good. I just don't
That
have
one
that
is
either.
great. Just like funny enough, it's like speaking of guitar pedals a little bit. Like I have this old Line 6. It's called Verbzilla. It's like they
Mm.
don't make it anymore, but it was this like plugin from like the early 2000s, 2010s kind of era. And it's like they have this, it's what like a lot of these plugins are based off. It's like this like octoverb thing that
Mm.
like if you listen to a lot of the early like Coldplay records, it was like that's what it was.
Oh,
Those like
cool.
hype. Yeah. And it's like, I will never get rid of that pedal because it does that one thing
Yeah.
specifically well. Like, I'm just like, damn it, like never gonna get rid of it. They're super hard to find, but if you can find one, like you might like it. It's like a great.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, it's
Reverbs
like
are interesting because, like, for a while I felt like it was like all reverbs are created equal, and like as I've been doing this more and more, it's like they're very
no,
much not,
no.
and like they can differ pretty
It's
significantly.
different, and like I think you hear the difference in quality and like the depth of a reverb.
Yeah,
Which like when you're getting like deep in a mix, it's like that's where you find like the real differences in
like
things.
a lot of I found it like I don't know if you like know those OTO like Baum or Bomb those boxes that are like very. You got to check those out too.
Okay, yeah,
Which
yeah.
one is it? OTO BAM is like it's like almost like a desk. It's like an outboard. It's not like a rack, but it's just like a desk unit. That like
Okay,
that's
yeah,
big time reverb that I just know that I'm pretty sure the mixer on this Kevin album I used it on some of the
yeah,
reverbs and it sounds amazing.
yeah. I mean, there's a reason why, like and like I added this one as our conversation was going to the plug or unplug list. But like, let's talk about like the H3000 that you just got. Like, what made you want to get it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more just like I've never like had an outboard effects rack. And I just was very curious to try it, and like
Yeah,
I obviously they're just very spoke of. Like you
yeah,
kind of just like know about these pieces of gear that people talk about in passing. I've used them before, and I thought they're really cool. So I want to just kind of
yeah,
get my hands on one, and it's great. I mean, it's just interesting. Like I think everything just this is also a sentiment that's been echoed I think on your podcast before. But
right,
like nothing's better than anything else. It's just
right.
do you gravitate towards the sound? It's like the same thing of like
How does it
vintage
make you
guitars
feel?
versus
It's
modern guitars.
yeah,
Like you just kind of either use it because you just like that a little more and it speaks to you a little bit more versus a different one.
yeah,
This H3000, like I will say, like and it's also just like hard. It's hard to quantify this as well, but like I do think that like it's not different. No, it's not better or worse, but it sounds different when stuff is through outboard gear than when it's through like plug-in stuff.
yeah.
So
And I love the plugin version of this, but I have a couple people
yeah,
that have the real ones. They're like, yeah, it like does that thing. I was going to
I
ask
mean,
too.
the real one is great. I actually have not
Yeah.
used the plugin. I've only used the real thing, but
Oh, the
hard for me
plugin's
to
great. The
compare.
plugin lives on it's like my go-to like vocal widener in my
Cool.
template.
Yeah, I mean,
So
this thing, the stereo-ness of this outboard unit is crazy. The
yeah.
chorus, like all the modulation stuff in it.
Yeah. How do you like to use it? Are you using it just like you're running stuff through it and then printing it down immediately? Or like, what do you
I've
how do
only
you
had it for like 2 weeks, so I'm still figuring
Okay,
it
so
out.
you're
But
still
it's mostly
it's
been
still
through
new.
guitars lately, like
Yeah.
or synths go through it into it. But like I will probably start running my vocals through it soon. I just need to connect that cable to my patch bay.
Yeah, and just like have it do the thing. I know that's what I would probably do. Like I said, like I have like a preset that is like one of like the famous H3000 presets that I kind of like tweaked a little bit, but it's like almost every vocal is like doing that for when I'm like, I want it a little bit wider, and it's just like bring it up, do that thing. I do want to get, speaking of like units like this, you ever use like a real like Roland Dimension D, or like you ever use the plugin version of it?
I've not. I have the Arturia Dimension D,
Yeah.
and I love it. I'd not used the real one though.
Yeah, so like I love the Arturia Dimension D. Like it's probably my favorite of the bunch. And my buddy, for our listeners, he was a guest or he's about to be a guest depending on when this episode comes out. He has a real Dimension D and we were like messing with it. I was like, "Oh my god. This is so much better." I don't know why, but it's kind of like a depth thing. It just like does a thing where you're just like, "Oh, this is now placed in a way differently than how the plugin does it." It's really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I have to check this. Like, I do like the plugin. I never really
Yeah.
thought about checking out the real ones of that.
Yeah, they're not like crazy expensive, and like you can
Yeah.
find them on Reaper. I think it's like for around like $1,000 or something. Like you can find them.
Yeah. So it's always like the things like, do you use a Space Echo emulator plugin, or do you just get a Space Echo or a Chorus Echo? You know?
Right, exactly. Like things like that are super fun. Next plugin is the Arturia Distortion Coldfire.
Oh, that one, is that a new one?
Yeah, it's been around for like 2 years,
'Cause I
maybe
don't
something like that.
I don't think I'd actually I use a lot of Arturia effects, but
Yeah.
I don't use that one. I don't think, but it's more like I've never tried it, so I can't speak. But
Yeah.
I just I don't know that one.
For you and our listeners, it's basically it's like obviously it's a distortion plugin, but it's able to do it in like mid-side and like stereo. You can have like two different distortions like interacting. It's one of those plugins where it's like I'm normally just like kind of like you with Portals, like I'm going through presets and just like kind of seeing what it does and then just like messing with it from there. But it's when I want to make something like super fucking aggressive. It's like my go-to sound. I just had a K-pop, or I guess technically J-pop record come out that like, I don't know, it's a new metal record. Go fucking figure. But like this like one of like the main cool guitar sounds, it was just like me, just like I came up with like this line. I just like kind of went through the presets and like one popped up and it was like the coolest fucking thing ever. It was just like, it worked. I was like, cool, that's that sound now.
Love that.
My favorite thing to do. Next plugin is one that we ask every guest because we get very funny and different responses. CLA vocals.
Yeah. It's a plugin that like I don't really use a lot of Wave stuff just because like I have other plugins or I'll use Ableton stuff, but like CLA vocals is like makes it sound good. I personally I'm not gonna be putting on a vocal chain probably, but like they exist in sessions that I open and like they sound great. You know, it's just I think it's more just like I would probably just make something in Ableton before I use that, you know?
Yeah. That's one of like the best ways I've heard it said, where it's like, it sounds great, not for me. You know, like I'm not reaching.
The thing against it, it's just I don't think I didn't like come up using it, so I'm just not. You know what I mean? It's just so hard to like, you know.
I think that's the way. Like I don't know any producers that are having success that are like, you know what, I'm gonna get into CLA vocals. It's like everyone's first plugin because it's like what $20, and you just like I know this makes vocals sound good, so I'm just gonna do that. Also, it's like the one thing I love about Ableton and also Logic is that so many of like their like preset kind of like racks that they have are fucking great.
Same with Ableton. Like there's
that's
so
what
much
I'm saying with
stuff
Ableton's. Yeah,
you know, it's built in and it sounds good. I'm probably just gonna use that. Honestly,
I just started using one.
Low, like
I know. I just started using one for the podcast. Funny enough, where before like I like made like a whole chain that I made for myself for like the podcast sound, and just recently I didn't realize it was there. Like Ableton has like a podcast like rack, and I was like, let me check this thing out.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. And like I checked it out and I was like, this is fucking great. And now I just like use that. It's been really good, especially for these like roundtable ones where it's like everyone is like using like different microphones. So I'd like, that's what made me find it, where I was like getting different microphones and I was getting like, you know, laptop microphones. And I just put this thing on there and I just like twisted a couple knobs. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like it's so good. So that's another reason to love Ableton. So we're going to move on to our next and last segment here. Before the close of every podcast this season, we've been asking our guests to give a little bit of advice to their younger selves or up and coming producers? Something that you wish you could tell yourself, or something that you wish you heard from someone else when you were first starting out to like help you get started?
Yeah, I mean, so much. I mean, I definitely think I think now more than ever, I kind of like mentioned it a bit beforehand that like all you can really do now as a producer is like show people what you think is cool. That's like a crux of like what being a producer is now. And I think really, really looking inward and trying to figuring out what you think is cool is like a really, really central part that will guide your producing career.
I love that, dude.
That's
That is,
it's very short, but like
it's very short, but it's very true. Like it's something honestly that I wish I heard years ago, because it's like it's kind of goes like to like the web of like don't chase trends. Like just do what you think is cool and like trust
and
your
like
taste.
implying that like if you think a trend is really cool, do it. I mean, it's just like you just got to follow like all it's super easy to get caught up in like what is going on around you and stuff like that, and like what you should or shouldn't be doing. But like, and also I will say like, sorry, secondary advice is ear training. Train your ears, please. Ear training will get you farther than any of the stuff we talked about on the podcast.
So when you say ear training, because I feel like it can mean a lot of different things. Like you're talking about like mix like ear like training.
No, I mean like that. I meant it from like more like music theory perspective.
That's what I was gonna like ask, like clarify, like ear training. Yeah, dude, it is true. It's so funny. It's like when I first came out here, like I'm pretty classically trained too and stuff, so I've always had a good ear. But like even like the simple thing of like, I think it's so important. Not the most important thing, but I think it's so important to like just be able to hear something and be like, oh, okay, that's what it is, and just like play it, or even like recognizing like what the 1 is, what the 2 is, like all those things. It's really, really, really important to like.
Yes, it makes just everything in your life easier if you can listen to a song and like while you're listening to it, know what the like you don't need to have perfect pitch, but knowing what the changes are as you're listening is like really, really helpful.
Oh, it makes my life so much easier, like to like understand that. And like even when I'm like, because there are other great singers where they like know what I mean when I say like, oh yeah, like you got like this chorus is starting on the 2, and like they're like, oh okay, that's what it is. It's just like the shorthand is really helpful for some people, not everyone. Dude, that's really incredible, Vise. I love that. We're gonna end the podcast here because I've taken up far too much of your time, like we always do. But dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And as I always say, we can cut this out, but is there anything you want to like mention, shout outs or anything before we end here?
I mean, just thank you so much for having me. I mean, the new Kevin Atwater album, I mean, I don't know when this will air, but the new Kevin Atwater album just came out on Friday, so please go listen to that,
There we go. Yeah, I haven't listened to it yet. I'm going to check it out. I was like, I didn't know you were doing it. So yeah, I'm going to listen to it today. I don't have a session, so I'm just like doing stuff, and I'm going to make a nice little St. Patrick's Day dinner later, make some corned beef and cabbage,
Love that.
We love it. Dude, well, again, thank you so much. Thank you to our listeners, and take care, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Producer Points. Your support means the world to us. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and share with fellow music enthusiasts. For an encore, check out our Spotify playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed on the show, giving you the perfect soundtrack to your creative journey. Additional audio and video editing for this episode was done by Nathan Rebello. Until next time, this is Justin Gamella.